Hi everyone, I'm Eric Brooks with Alpine Electronics, and you may have heard that we have a new Tesla system developed specifically for the Tesla Model 3 and the Model Y. Well, today they're going to trust me to do an install. So we're going to take our time, we're going to do it right, and we're going to show you how this all goes in. Okay, so let's take a quick look at some of the things that come in all of the things that come in the system. There are a lot of different speakers here. So if you have a Model 3 or a Model Y, the install is going to be very similar. Okay, so when we start talking about the different aspects of what we're doing in this vehicle, this is a 23 Model Y. It's very similar to what you would get into in a Model 3. So many of the aspects of the install are going to mirror that in a Model Y. But I want to talk a little bit about what you get in the boxes so that you know what we're getting into here. So there's 6.5 components for the front doors. There's 4-inch speakers for the back doors, 4-inch speakers for the rear hatch. There's 3 4-inch and a tweeter that go in the dash of this, and then the 10-inch sub that goes in the trunk. So real quick, Model 3, if you have a non-premium system, you're going to get 11 speakers in the DSP amplifier. If you have the premium audio system in your Model 3, you're going to get everything you see here, 13 speakers and the DSP amplifier, just like the Model Y that we're going to work on. So 13 speakers, DSP amplifier. All the harnessing has been pre-terminated. We don't have to cut any harnessing. Everything plugs right in. Same thing on the speakers. They all plug right in here, and they're very easy to mount in the vehicle. So we're going to go through this process step by step for you so that you have an understanding of how to put this in your vehicle. And keep in mind, whether it's a Model 3 or a Model Y, these installs are very similar. So you should be able to do it for both. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Before we begin doing actual labor on the vehicle, I wanted to take a few minutes and go over the tools that we're going to use to do our install on this Model Y. So the Model Y and the Model 3, you should need the same assortment of tools. I just want to go over them with you so you make sure you have everything you need before you go and get started. So we have a Phillips and a flathead screwdriver. We have an assortment of pry tools. We have a razor knife, a utility knife. We have a couple of drill bits. You're going to want something that's at least a 1/4-inch drill bit. We have a pair of pliers. You can use either regular pliers or needle nose pliers. We have a set of crimper/cutters, right? So we have some Kleins here for that. We have a 13mm wrench. So you can use a wrench or you could use a socket and ratchet. You'll want to have, if you use sockets, you'll want a deep and a shallow socket for that, but we used a 13mm wrench. We also have this nifty ratcheting screw tip holder ratchet, right? So we have this piece for getting up in the dashboard, so you'll want this tool for sure with different Torx bits. So you're going to want to have a T20, a T25, and a T30 Torx bit for the various screws that are in the vehicle. You'll also want an 8mm socket and a 10mm socket. So that should cover your gamut of tools, and we want to have you set up for success. So make sure you have those before you begin your process of installation. Okay, so before we start the installation process on this vehicle, there are a few things that you need to do with the electrical system. So I want to run you through those procedures so that you can be best prepared for doing your install. So number one, you want to make sure all the windows are down in the vehicle. So we're going to have those all down. We're going to have the frunk and the trunk open. So we're going to go ahead and pop those open. We're going to have the back seats unlatched so they can fold down. All right, because what's going to happen is we're going to disconnect all power from this vehicle. And if your vehicle has those motorized back seats and they're latched up, you're going to run into a bit of a problem with taking some of the rear panels out. So you want to make sure those are latched, and then, you know, try not to let them go all the way back and get locked into place. So those are just some keys and some tips to do before you start this shutdown process. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go into the, we're going to hit the car icon at the bottom left of the screen. We're going to go to safety. We're going to scroll all the way down to power off. We click power off. We confirm power off, and now the screen is off. Now we're going to go to the front, disconnect the low voltage, then we're going to go under the back seat and disconnect the high voltage, and then we can start our install. Okay, so we're under the frunk. I'm going to tell you a little bit how this is going to work, and then we're going to do it. So first off, this piece just snaps right off. This comes off real easy. It's going to make a little noise, but you're just going to do these plastic clips, work your way across, and it's off. So there's our cowling. That comes off real easy. Then we're going to come back. There's 4 10 millimeter bolts that hold this tub in, right? So we're going to undo that. And then there's a plug for your light. So we're going to unplug that, take it out. And then there's 2 10 millimeter bolts here that hold this air duct in. So we're going to take that off. And then the battery's right there, and we'll unplug it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take out this frunk liner. I'm not sure all of these have that, but there you go. So there's our liner. And then we just grab a hold, and this comes out really nice and easy. Now, underneath this panel, there's a little plug. Kind of a pain, but it'll just snap right out. Okay, so we just unplug that there, and then this lifts right out. Now that that's out, there's a 10 millimeter bolt on the edge of this air intake. Another 10 millimeter right over here. And then this piece just lifts right out of the vehicle. And now this is our battery connection for the low voltage system. So what you're going to do, you're going to pull back on this green tab that releases the lock. You push down on the tab itself and then just unplug. So now our low voltage system is disconnected. We're going to go in the car, take out the back seat, and disconnect the high voltage there. So let's go. Okay, so we're in the back seat area here, and we're going to pop up the cushion of the back seat. Now, some of the vehicles have little tabs that you release to get the seat up. This one you just pull. So basically, we're just going to grab a hold of this thing. We're going to pull it up, okay, and then you slide it forward just a little bit. There's a little piece of the seat that actually rides kind of in a groove on the back. So you're going to pull it up, pull it out, and then just kind of relax it back and lean it against the back of the seats here. And that way we can get to our connections for the battery right over there. So let's see if we can get you a view of that. Okay, so with the seat up, you'll see this plug here. This is our high voltage connection here. So what you're going to do, there's a little safety tab. You're going to flip that, and then this panel will just swing over and it unlocks, and then you can go ahead and pull up on this and disconnect the battery. So there's your high voltage connection there. So that's all disconnected. But now our high voltage system is disconnected. The car's powered down, and we are safe. So with the car powered down, it's now time to start prepping our install, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna run our wiring harness, but there's some prep needed to be done, right? We're gonna remove some panels from the vehicle to make this process easier. So we're gonna remove the side panels and the panels all the way down the passenger side of the vehicle, the front passenger area, the rear passenger area, and then in the trunk, because we have to have a connection done inside the dash right here. There's a connection that goes in the back of the center console. There's also a connection in the trunk, and then we get power right underneath the back seat here. So we need to get all this accessible so that we can make that happen. Now in this process, I'm going to go ahead and remove the A-pillars as well, so that when it's time to replace our front speakers, that's already done. Okay, so we're going to do step by step. We'll work our way from the front to the back and give you an idea of how this goes together. Really, the only tool we're going to need in this section is our panel puller. So we're going to use this, and we're going to start doing it. Okay, so we're going to remove several panels here. The first couple are going to be repeated on the driver's side. So we're going to remove this little cover panel here, and the A-pillar, you're going to need to take this out on the driver's side too, but the process is the same. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to pull back the weather stripping just a little bit, make it a little easier to get in here. We're going to take our panel popper, and we're just going to pry right down kind of on the side edge, because we don't want to mess up our headliner material here, and there's a snap right at the top. So once that's unsnapped, you just lift up. So there's a hook at the bottom and a snap at the top. So you're going to want to make sure to do that. Then on the A-pillar, really easy. You're just going to kind of grab a hold of this here and kind of pull inward on it, and it'll unsnap. So you just kind of push to the inside of the car direction, and then that will unsnap. There is a little clip on this thing with a retainer. So you're gonna wanna get this. I'll show you more how this works in a second once I get the A-pillar out of here. But it just basically lifts up. So there's a couple of clips and then it just lifts out of place. But this right here, you just squeeze these little tabs together and then this retainer comes out, right? So that's how that works. So that's the A-pillar. So we got our A-pillar out of the vehicle. We got this little panel out. And now we're gonna take out this runner on the passenger side. So right up here, there's a little a plug, okay? So basically you're gonna need your little panel puller. The inside piece of this plug is gonna come out a little bit, and then you can go ahead and grab a hold of it. So that's out. So basically you're just gonna pop out the center pin and then remove the whole clip, right? So that's out. Then, again, just a couple of clips here, and this just removes right out of the vehicle. Comes out real nice and smooth, okay? So again, just a couple of clips down the way, and this is out. Okay, so working our way to the back of the vehicle, we need to prep this B-pillar to be able to get access. So we're gonna run our wires through here, so this needs to be loose. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna pull up the rubber here. There are 3 points that hold down this wire chase. So there's a little point in here, there's a little gap, and there's a point here, a point here. So you squeeze these towards kind of like a pinch, right? And then, so there's 3 of them. So there's one right here. So you just kind of work them, and then this piece will come loose, and there's a pin that actually holds the B-pillar down here. So once this is up, the B-pillar is now loose and can be moved when we start running our wires down. So that's the front side of the B-pillar. Then we'll do the back side. So let's go ahead and keep moving backwards. Okay, so now we're in the back passenger compartment, the back door area. So we're gonna remove this panel here. So I'm just gonna pull back the rubber seal a little bit, and then we're just gonna grab a hold and kind of pull up on it and try to get your fingers in and just pull up, right? Clips undo nice and easy, and there's that panel. So that's out of the way. And then we have another push pin here, so we're gonna need to pull that out. So we take our little panel puller, just pry it underneath here, pop up the middle, there we go, and it's out. And there you go, so that little panel puller comes out right there, boom, boom, boom. And now our B-pillar is loose. So now we can run our wires right through this channel and then get back here. And then this, again, is our 12-volt power point. So we're gonna tag that in later on. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this panel, this pop off too, just so we have accessibility there when it's time. So I'll just get underneath there, pop that up, and now our carpet's loose. So now we have just a little more room, because we're also gonna have to work our way over to the console. So there's one more pull here, and then we'll do that. So on to the next step. Okay, so we've worked our way through the car. We're now back at the trunk. This is where we're gonna take a lot of the car apart here, but it's not hard to do, okay? There are a lot of snaps. There's some panels that need to come off, but you can handle it, okay? What we're gonna do first, we're gonna take off these back panels. We're gonna take those out of the car. We're gonna remove portions of this rubber gasket. Basically from that corner up there to where I'm sitting here is gonna need to pull off so we can get these panels out. This is also a point when, we talked about releasing the seats before you do the power down. This is when they need to be down fully so you can get accessibility to these panels and have room to get them out of the car. So basically we're gonna get some of the stuff totally out of the car. And then these panels here on the side are basically just gonna lay over, okay? So I'll show you how that works. We're gonna jump back and forth from this side to that side. So we'll get angles to show you, and I'll try to describe it as I go. So you get an understanding of how this comes apart, but let's go for it. All right, so let's go ahead. We're gonna take these pieces out first. So you just wanna kinda lift up and slide this one, kinda angle out, because it's bigger in the front than it is in the back. We're gonna go ahead and start peeling up this rubber piece here. And we're just gonna, got some sticky stuff on it, so make sure you don't get it on your clothing, because it does have a little bit of adhesive there. This panel here, this plastic panel, just snaps in, so you want to just get your fingers kind of under it and then kind of pull up, right? So it'll just unsnap. There you go. So that's off. There's a couple of plastic pieces here, but we're going to pop this up so this panel snaps off right here. And then we're going to grab our panel puller right here. There's a snap here, so we're going to need to Get that center piece up. I just got to get it out. There's one clip. And then on the inside of this pocket, this inside of the pocket needs to come out. So there's a clip that actually secures the tub. So you're going to want to get that. So there's a single snap right there, right in the middle. So now this is loose, right? That tub is now loose on this side. And then this piece can pop right out. And it's the inside of this pocket. So you just kind of work it and it'll come right out. So that's the inside of the pocket there. Now the rest is just kind of unsnapping and pulling the panels this way. So you want to kind of loosen the carpet first. So we're just going to kind of pop it, right? Nice and easy. Come to the front side. Again, you're going to want to take this rubber piece off too in the door jamb. Make sure it's loose. There's kind of a clip right at this front edge that you want to pull toward the front of the vehicle, because it hooks onto that plastic. So once you unhook that, you're good. And then this will just kind of lay out of the way. So we can just set this totally out of the way in the car. And then we have this plastic. So the plastic again, we're just gonna kind of grab a hold and unsnap. It's just some plastic snaps. Now at the front, where the headliner meets, there's, it's got a groove. So you kind of need to lower the back down and kind of fold it that way. So this thing will work its way right out. So you can see this channel. This channel is where the headliner sits. So you just need to kind of work that to where it comes out there. So now we have basically the whole passenger side of the car apart, and we have everything we need in the trunk apart. Here's your factory subwoofer. Okay, so we'll take that out in a little while, but now we're ready to run some wires. Okay, so we're back in the front of the vehicle. We're gonna start doing our harnessing for the system. So this is the end of the harness that has a T-harness for the front amplifier. There's actually 2 amplifiers in this car. So what we need to do is we need to take down the under dash. Okay, so there's 4 plugs that hold this under dash on. We're going to use our panel puller to do those. We're going to drop this down. There's a light and a speaker that's connected here for your door chime. So we're going to take those off and get that panel out of here. Once that's out, there are 2 plugs on this factory amp that are all the way on the side of the passenger side. There's a white plug and then a black plug just above it, okay? So you can see them once you get your head tucked up under the dash. They are a little bit challenging to get out because there's some other wires there, but you can get it, no problem. I just use my fingernail, push the tabs, and pop them out, all right? So let's start by removing this panel. So this is what the plug looks like. So this is the centerpiece that you pop up, and then the whole plug pops out, okay? So again, there's 4 of those. Now, once that's done, we're just gonna grab the panel, and we'll pop it right down. Now you'll see 2 plugs. So this is a plug for the light, the under dash. So again, a little tab, you undo that. The speaker plug, it's just kind of a pressure fit plug, so you just kind of got to grab a hold of the plug. Make sure you hold the speaker, and then that'll just unsnap. Okay, so that's the speaker, so you're good to go there. Okay, now, these are the 2 plugs. There's a white plug at the bottom corner, and then a black plug just above it, okay? So there's a little push tab that you can just get your fingernail in on to push in. Let me see if I can get it with my panel puller. That might make it easier. There it goes. Now it's released. All right. So that's our first plug. Now, there are some other harnesses in here that kind of push against you. They kind of fight you a little bit. So you just got to manipulate. And then there's plug number 1. Okay, so there's the white plug at the bottom. And then there's a black plug just above it. So the black plug seems to me, at least it was a little easier. Push it on a tab and boom. There's the black plug. All right, so now we have a T-harness. So what's gonna happen is we're gonna put this end of the T-harness, the male end of the plugs, we're gonna plug that into this amplifier, okay? So we'll kind of get this out of the way. We'll do the smaller plug first. The smaller plug goes at the top. So we're gonna go ahead and try to run that in there. There, just clipped in. So that's the first harness. And now, here's our second plug, so we're gonna try to line that up. And again, if you can kind of get both, oh, there it goes. Once you push on, when you push on the wiring from this angle to kind of level out the plug, it goes in a lot easier. And now we just take our T-harness side. They only plug in one way. So you want to plug this in, boom, there's that one. And again, only one way, and there you go. Now, we want to start running this back to the back. There's one plug right here in the kick panel. So you want to, again, pry on the middle, pop out that plug, and now our carpet's loose. And we can begin running this cable with the factory wiring, and we're going to work our way to the back. Once we get it past that point, now we can put the plug back in. Now we're going to go ahead and start chasing this wire to the back. We're going to push it through the B-pillar. We've got our B-pillar kind of loosened up here. So there's snaps on that B-panel. You want to try to manipulate that, get it unsnapped, and get it moved out as far as you can, right? And then you're just going to kind of push your wires through the B-pillar to get them to pop out on the other side. Okay. So we've tucked it in, and there it is. It's sitting right there for us. So we can just go ahead and begin to pull this cabling back. Okay. So now that's all of our harnessing coming through, right? So now we're gonna just make sure that as we work it back, it works in line with the factory harness. We're gonna go back up to the front, lay that all down, and then we can start working it back. All right. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to put the B-pillar kind of back in it somewhat of its place, and then this factory wire chase, we're going to clip that all back in. Okay, and then we're just going to lay this wire right next to it, and it'll be good to go. Okay, so since we have our plugs plugged in and the wiring ran back to the B-pillar, I'm going to kind of put the car a little bit back together. So I'm going to put the underdash back together, and I'm going to put this this channel that goes over the wiring here back together, and then the kick panel. We still need to leave the A-pillar and this section off for when we do the dash speakers, but at least we get the car somewhat back together in the front here. So this is the panel that goes under the dash. Again, we have our speaker connectors, so we need to plug that back in. We have our light connection, so that's going to go right here. Okay, and then this thing just kind of sits in a groove and then snaps up, okay? And then it'll kind of snap into place. And then we just put our clips in so we can put those back in and then push that center piece back in, and that locks it into place, right? So, boom, there's 2, there's 3, and 4. All right, so that panel's all back together. We're plugged in, good to go. Now we're gonna put in our door sill and put our rubber back on. So we're just gonna line this up. Remember, there's just a few clips here. So you wanna make sure you work it around that new wiring harness that we just put in. It just kind of fits right into place, right? Really nice and easy. We have our push tab here. That's gonna go right up there. Push that center in, it locks into place. And then we can go ahead and put the rubber back together to that point. So we're gonna just work this back in to the groove, push it down firm, get it looking right. All right, there we go. Okay, so we're back in the back seat area. We have a couple of additional connections to make here before we work our way to the trunk. First, we have a power connection. There's a little red cover here for the positive terminal. We're going to lift up the red cover. We're going to use a 13mm wrench and just loosen up this bolt a little bit. Once I get it loose, I can go ahead and use my fingers to back it off. And then I'm going to take my power connector with the fuse already on it, and I'm going to connect that right here to the power. So I put that down, and I'm going to go ahead and put my nut back on, and then I'm going to tighten it back up with the wrench. So again, 13mm wrench, and then just tighten her up. So that's tight. We'll put the cover back on. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and do the ground side. I'm going to come around the other side. Okay, it's loose. Get our ground connection. Ring terminal's already on it. We're just going to run that around this way. And then we're going to go ahead and put the nut back on. Okay, there we go. That's snugged up. All right, so we've got our power, we've got our ground. We also have an accessory wire that's on this power harness. So what we're gonna do, this accessory wire is actually gonna run over to the back of the console. So I'm gonna show you here in just a second how to run that over and then up to the back of the console. Okay, time to connect to the back of the console. This turns the system on when the head unit's on and off when the car is not activated. So what we need to do, there's a panel at the bottom back of the console that needs to come off, okay? So what you need to do is kind of wedge your hand between the carpet and this plastic panel and just get both hands on it and just give it a pull and it comes right off, right? So there you go. And behind that panel, there is a blue plug. That is our point to grab accessory. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna take our included CAN adapter here. It's called a CAN Pro. And we're gonna unplug this blue wire, or this blue connector, excuse me. There's a little red safety lock. You're gonna unlock it. You're gonna unplug that. Then you're gonna plug our T-harness in. So the male goes into the female harness here and locks in. Lock that all down. And then we plug in the other side of the T-harness and we'll be good to go. So once you get this all locked in, we're just gonna hide our CAN adapter up in the back of the console here. So you're gonna try to tuck this thing away. You could probably put it right underneath this carpet. There is another push pin here. So if you release that, you'll need to release that anyway to get the wire up here. So grab your panel puller. Same type of plug that's been throughout the car. So it's one of those larger plugs. So you pull out the centerpiece and then the whole thing will come out. Then you can pull back your carpet here for the console. So you're gonna wanna pull this back and then you can tuck this module down in here. But before we do that, we need to run, it's easier to run the smaller wire up than it is to run it back that way. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull forward and up this carpet and run this wire below the carpet up to that back point of the console. So you just want to kind of peel that carpet up and then start shoving your hand in. If you have some type of a long fish, that'll help. I don't have one available to me. Not everyone has one available to them. So we're going to do this the old-fashioned way and work our hand into position. Okay, all right. Whew. There we go, folks. So I will tell you that this bend in the carpet is a challenge, okay? So I was able to get my hand all the way to that bend and then pull out on that curve with my hand and then drop a little wire down to tie on. But if you have a long zip tie, like a really long zip tie, like a fish or something like that, that would be the way to go for this. But you can do it without. It's just, you just have to be patient and really get your fingers in all the way to the turn of that carpet to pull out on it to get it up. So here we go. Here's our connection here. So what we're going to do is strip back this wire. Okay, so we strip back the wire. We have a connector on our accessory lead out of our pack module. So that's going to go right here. We're going to crimp that connection. Then we're going to place this module down below the carpet line. So there's room below this carpet line for that module to fit in there. Then what we're going to do is we'll pull up the carpet just a hair. We'll pull back this red wire that we ran. Okay. But I'm going to actually leave that connection visible there. So just in case, we'll have that accessible, right? So we're going to leave that right next to that blue connector under the console, and it's right there. Okay, so now that that's back together, we can go ahead, we can put this push pin back in the carpet. There it goes. Clipped in. Okay, now we're going to take our cover and just snap it right back into place. And that's done. All right, so then we'll run our red wire over and run it to the back. All right, so now that we've got our accessory wire connected and ran over to the side here, we're going to take our power, ground, and accessory plug, which is right here, and we're going to fish that back to the back in the trunk. So we're going to feed that up this way, nice and easy. We're going to go right next to the factory harnessing, just like so. Okay, now that's there. So now we can go ahead and put this panel back on. And then we can put our rubber boot on to this point, and then we'll finish up in the trunk. All right, so we're back in the trunk again. We've ran our wires over, the power, the ground, the accessory wire, that plug. We've run the main harness for input from the front all the way to the trunk at this point. Now I'm just I'm gonna leave it over to the side. Okay, so it's just gonna sit out of the way. But there is one portion that we need, and that's the part that ties in to our subwoofer amplifier that's located in this back quarter panel. So we're going to need this portion of that harness. We're also going to need the actual subwoofer connector wire, which is right here. This comes out of our DSP amplifier and plugs into our new subwoofer. So we're going to need that. So we'll keep that handy. But this is a point when we're going to go ahead. We're going to need to unbolt the factory amp out of the way, get it out of the way. So there's 3 bolts there. It's going to swing out of the way. We're going to unbolt the factory subwoofer. That's 3 bolts as well, all of them 10 millimeter. We're going to get that out of the way, and then we're going to put our new subwoofer in. Now, at this point, this is when we would recommend that you do some sound deadening material. So I'm not going to take up time in the video to actually show you doing the sound deadening, but while we're in here, we're going to do that. So after we take all this out, we'll sound deaden, and then I'll show you putting everything back in. So let's get started removing the amplifier and the subwoofer and making these connections. Okay, so I've got my 10 millimeter on my cordless drill here. You can use a 10 millimeter on a ratchet, but there are 3 10 millimeter bolts that go and hold this amplifier in right here. So I'm going to take those off now. All right, so the amplifiers should be loose. There's a little tab on the bracket that locks in, so you kind of got to lift up a little bit, and then you can swing it out of the way. There's also a little push clip that holds this wiring harness on, so you can squeeze that together and get that wiring harness out of the way. Gives you a little more room. Drop the amplifier down. Now there's 3 bolts for the factory 8-inch sub. The plug for the subwoofer is right here on the front of the enclosure. So we're going to unplug that. And then the subwoofer will just swing right out of the way here. So there's your 8-inch factory sub. Okay, so we've done some of our sound deadening here. We're going to go ahead and take and add our new Alpine 10-inch woofer to this. So it's going to slide right into the spot of that factory 8-inch. Now, the thing to note on this is the new 10 uses 2 mounting points versus the 3 mounting points for the factory sub. There is a standoff that holds it up on the bottom, but there is no bolt for that. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this, okay? So 1, got a bolt for down here. It is a little tighter with that sound deadening, so you will need to work just a little bit to get the woofer in the spot, but that's good because that means it won't rattle. All right, now we're going to put the factory amplifier back into place. So again, remember it has that little locking tab. So you're going to lock that into place, and then we're going to tighten that back up. All right, now we're right and tight there. So now we're just going to make our connections. So we have our 2 harnesses that are right here. This is our T harness for the amplifier. So we're going to unplug these plugs that are in the factory amp. The 2 main plugs here, the 2 bigger plugs. There's still going to be 1 plug that's plugged in. That's your old output wire to the factory sub. So we're going to put the T harness in place. Plug those into the factory wires, and then plug it into the amplifier. There's the small plug. There's the larger plug. I'm going to mount this back in, that little clip that holds that. Now we have our subwoofer wire. We're going to hook this over here. And we're going to plug that in. And then we're going to run these wires up to the top. We'll tie these up and then get ready to mount and plug in our DSP amplifier. Okay, so before we finish tying up all our wires, I want to make sure that we have an easy access and view of where everything's going. So I'm going to take this plastic panel that covers this portion of the trunk. I'm going to go ahead and put that in now. Again, you're going to want to work from the front to the back and just kind of maneuver this thing into place and make sure that you get the snaps in the appropriate spot. There is this groove for the headliner, so you may need to pull down on the headliner just a little bit to be able to manipulate this and get it into the right spot. You know, you just want to make sure you get it in the proper spot. There we go, and it just goes right in. So you just want to kind of work it from front to back until it goes into the right spot. One of our clips fell out, so we're going to need to put that back in real quick. No big deal. They just slide right in. So we clip that back in, line that up, it snaps in. Now we're going to go back to the back portion. Okay, again, you can kind of see where the snaps need to go, and then they just clip in. So once you get it there, and then hold it in place, and then you could put the rubber seal back on. So now that panel's all back on and ready to rock and roll. So now we'll tighten this back up, get ready to mount our DSP amp, and we'll be good to go. So we took a few minutes off camera, we mounted our DSP amplifier and made the wires tidy. I don't think you needed to see all the detail of that, but I want to show you the final result and point out what we did for you. So basically we mounted the DSP amplifier underneath this floor panel. So we mounted that first, plugged the cabling in, and then made it all nice and neat going up into the side panel here. We then took the panel that goes on the floor and we actually notched out a spot for the wires. So a slight modification to the vehicle for that. So I want to pause here for just a moment and share with you some information on mounting this DSP amplifier. You're going to want to use a more aggressive screw when mounting the DSP amplifier under this panel. You're going to want something with a bigger thread so that the screws won't pull out from the weight of the amp. You might also choose to mount your amplifier in the center of this floor area. You could use some spacers to make sure that the amp is level, and then screw into that backed carpet there to secure the amplifier down. So I just wanted to share those options with you so that you could choose to mount the amplifier for your best location in your vehicle. So now at this point, wires are tied up, everything looks nice and neat. We're going to go ahead and put the vehicle back together. So we're going to start with this larger carpeted panel that covers the side of the trunk. Then we'll put this in, then we'll put the rest of the trunk back together. So let's get started on that. You know, we're just going to work back and forth and get it into spot. So we're going to get it set here. We'll come up to the front. Need to make sure that the seat belt goes around this piece. Okay, so we have that set there. Come back to the back and just kind of work it into place. So just slide it down, slide it in, and once you get there, you're just gonna kind of push her into place here. So you can go ahead and put your rubber gasket back on. That'll help hold it into place while you get other spots going. And then once you get it all in the right spot, it'll just kind of go. Tap it into place. Tap, tap, tap it in. Make sure all our snaps are good. All right, that panel's in. Now we have a couple of snaps to put in. We have one right here for this panel. We have our trunk pocket that needs to go back in. That slides right down into here. Okay, lift the carpet up, falls right into place. Look at that. Tap, there we go, snaps in. Now, something to note some of these metal clips came off when I removed this panel earlier, so you want to make sure to put those back into place. We line this up. We've got our little groove for our wiring, and then we just snap this down. Done. Look at that. Beautiful. We can now take the floor and put it back in place. That's in place. Now we'll finish putting the trunk back together. So I'm taking the rubber panel back off. This piece snaps back into place. Put the rubber panel back on, and you just want to work the gasket up because it needs to go over and under the plastic at the same time. There's two portions. One side goes under, the other side goes over. You kind of use your finger, run it around, and get it where it needs to go. You want this thing to be back in the right seal, because this is what seals the vehicle from weather and things like that. So, all right, and our trunk is now back together. We can put the floor all back in. At this point, we have our DSP amplifier mounted underneath the false floor lid here. We have all our wiring done, our subwoofers in, our connections are all made. All that wiring harnesses ran, the cars, that portion of the cars put back together. So we're ready to move on to the next steps. In this Model Y, keep in mind the DSP amplifier mounts under the floor here. On the Model 3, it's going to mount underneath the rear deck in the trunk. So that's where the Model 3 mounts. So it's a little different, but the same, right? So next we're going to move on to doing your speaker install. And we're going to start, since we're already in the trunk, we'll start right here. So we're going to take apart this rear deck, or this rear hatch. It's really pretty easy to do. There's snaps that hold this upper portion in. So we'll unsnap that. There's a couple of push pins, and then this will all snap down. There is a wire connector for the light and the speakers, so we'll disconnect that. Get the trunk lid off, this rear hatch lid off. We'll put it on our table, and we'll show you how to change out the speakers. So you're going to want to take your panel tool and just kind of get in the edge of this upper panel on the hatch, and get your panel pull in and kind of wedge it, and it'll start the snaps from unclipping. And once you get to that point, I usually just use my fingers underneath the panel and pull down. So you'll need to pull a little aggressively, but it'll pop right off just like that. So now we're going to take this larger panel off. And again, in the corners, there are two push pins. So we get our little panel puller, pop it out, and then take that plug out. Okay, there's one. And there's one on this side, right in this corner. There we go. Okay, that one. And then pull that piece out. There we go. There's two. And now the big panel. So basically on this one, you're going to grab this corner here, kind of bend it down, and then start popping. And again, you may have to get a little aggressive because these panels do stick on pretty tightly. But once you get it started, it'll kind of just fall off in your hands. There you go. It's off. Now, under here, there's one wire that's connected to the panel with one plug. So let me unplug it here. There's your plug. So this connects the lights, the speakers, all the stuff for this lid. So we're going to take this over to the table, and we'll start working on removing the speakers. I've set up a table here with a cloth to protect our panel, and we don't want to scratch it up, so we want to have a nice clean working area for it. So I'm just going to set our panel up here. The reason we have to take this panel off is because the grills need to be removed to get to the screws. Okay, so the speakers actually mount from the front, but there are tabs for the grills that come through the back of the panel. So what we're going to do, we're going to take these and just bend them with our fingers. Okay, so we'll do this grill first. You got to work around the insulation here, the damping material that's on the back of this panel. You have to work around that a little bit. So once we bend those tabs, we can kind of use the tabs to push, and then our grill comes out, right? So there's one grill, so we'll put that aside, and then we'll do the other. So again, just follow the same procedure, follow them around, work around this insulation material here. And there you go. So there's our second grill. Now, to make it easier to reinstall, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take a pair of pliers. You can use regular pliers, needle nose, whatever. And you want to kind of straighten these tabs out because when it goes to putting this back through, those bends will make it a little more challenging to get through the panel. So we're just going to straighten these out just a little bit. They don't have to be perfectly straight. We just don't want a big curve in these because it will make it harder to get them back in. So we straighten that one. We're going to go ahead and straighten this one. All right, so now that these are straight, we can go ahead and flip our panel over. So we're going to flip our panel over, and then we can see the screws for the speakers. So each speaker has 3 screws. We're going to need to unplug the speakers, so I'll flip this back around. We're going to want to unplug the speakers, so there's a little tab you push in and then pull. So there's our speaker connections. Those are disconnected. Flip it over, and then we have our Torx screws, right? So this is a T30 that we're going to put in here, and I lied, it's not a T30. It's actually a T25. So let me go ahead and get that, and then we'll pick back up. Okay, now that we have the correct driver, this is a T25, we can go ahead and take our screws out of this speaker. So there are 3 on each. So there's 1, there's 2, and here is 3. So we've got this one loose. We're just going to pop it out there. So there's our factory speaker. We're going to do the next one. So again, 3 more screws on the other side. 1, 2, and 3. Now with this speaker out, I want to take a minute and show you some of the differences between the factory speaker and this new Alpine speaker that we're putting in. Number one, you'll notice the cone material. So this is a paper cone, which really over time really will deteriorate. It doesn't have the rigidity that we really want in a high performance speaker. And just basically the tooling and everything that goes into it is just basic. It's basic, right? So this is a premium speaker that we're going to get in the Alpine. It has that blue carbon fiber cone, which is very lightweight and rigid. It'll stand the test of time and give you music enjoyment for a long, long time out of these speakers. It also has that hammer surround, so great control. And you can really see just in the build quality of the speakers, the difference there, the tooling and the fit and finish, everything that goes into it. And it has that direct plug on the back, so it plugs right into that factory wiring. So really cool to see the difference between the factory and this new Alpine speaker that's going into the vehicle. So we'll go ahead and start putting this in. So these speakers only fit one way. It looks like a triangle, but it's not exactly proportioned. So you got to find your correct fitment, how it fits in just right, and then we'll start installing the new speaker. If you're going to use a drill to do this, be mindful of the amount of torque you put on these screws. You don't want to strip out the plastic that it mounts to. So using a hand screwdriver, we can kind of feel when we get to the maximum torque before we, wear out that plastic. So just something to think about if you're using a drill to do this versus a hand screwdriver. Okay. Find the hole, screw it in, nice and snug. All right. So there's one new speaker in. Now I'll grab the other. It's right here. There we go. Everything lines up just right. These look really cool in this location. You can kind of see it through the grill when the grill goes on, so it's a pretty cool look. All right, so our speakers are in. We're going to go ahead and push our grills through. And you just want to work those tabs to where they go in the hole correctly. So just before you start pushing on it, make sure you got it lined up right. Okay, so that grill's in. And now we're going to get this grill in, and it only fits one way, so you really can't mess it up. You just don't want to push too hard on it before you get it in the right place. Now, hold the grills in place. Turn this over for you. Let's see. Give you the best viewing angle. And then we're just going to start bending those tabs back. Just reverse the process of how we took them out. And bend them nice and snug. That way the grill doesn't rattle or vibrate or anything like that. So there's one grill down. All right, grills are done. Now we're going to plug it in. Okay, time for the hard part. Speakers connected. Speakers connected. And now it's ready to put this thing back together, right? So we're just going to reverse the process of how we took it out. We're going to plug this back in, snap it into place, and we'll move on to the next speaker. Make sure to remember to plug in your plug so that everything works appropriately. So we have that plugged in, and now we're just going to work our way around these two rubber stops. You want to make sure to get it past those first, and then start snapping it. The next step we're going to do is replacing the dash speakers in the vehicle. So I've gone ahead and taken apart our A-pillar on the driver's side. I followed the same process that we did on the passenger side earlier in the install. So we've taken that apart. You need that off so that you can get this grill piece out. And what we're going to do, there's snaps on the edge closest to me. There's snaps that go straight down. So we're going to start on this corner. We're going to work our way across, popping up those snaps. And then there are tabs that lock in toward the front of the vehicle. So once we get it snapped up, we're going to pull this grill toward us. I'm going to start in this front corner here, basically on the very corner of the grill. I'm just going to get my finger under there and I'm going to pull it up. So I'm just going to work my way across, unsnapping all the way. And then once it's loose, this thing will just pull toward you and you get it out of your way. So with that grill out of the way, now we're going to use our T20. I actually have a T20 on a ratcheting wrench adapter here, so I can get in this tight spot. On a Model 3, you're definitely going to want to use this type of tool because that windshield is very, very close to the dashboard. So you'll need this type of tool to get in there and get those screws loosened. Something to note on some of these vehicles, based on the date range and some of the builds, some of these vehicles have a location for a center tweeter and some don't. This particular vehicle does not have a tweeter location in the center of the dash, so we're going to omit that from this install. If you do have a factory tweeter, it's included in the kit with a Y adapter. So this is the harness that would go in line, and it's labeled mid, tweeter, and input. So this would plug into the vehicle and then out to the speakers, and there are those speakers in the kit. So just keep that in mind based on your particular vehicle. You may have a tweeter and you may not. So keep that in mind. So we're going to go ahead and get started replacing these speakers. Okay, now we're going from our passenger side to the center channel. Same process. So these only fit one direction. And you have to be careful for the wiring. You want to make sure that the wiring's not in the way so that it will actually push down into the hole. So that's something you want to be mindful of when you're putting it in. And again, on the center speaker, this would be the location for your tweeter. Okay, this vehicle does not have that. On to the last one, the driver's side, and then we're done with the dash. With our dash speakers now installed, we can go ahead and replace the grill, put it back into place here. Keep in mind that there are kind of hooks on the front leading edge of this that need to line up, and then it snaps down. So if you're by yourself like I am, you need to just be careful, be gentle, be patient with it. You're gonna have to work back and forth from passenger side to driver side. So just reach over and get this thing into place here. And beautiful. Now that grill's in, we can go ahead and put our A-pillar in. So you just want to work this down into the groove. There is a metal tab on the side of this dash panel that I'm pulling out with my finger behind the panel. It'll make it a lot easier to have it go in for you. Don't forget about your little strap that needs to be plugged in. So you're going to just snap that back in also. And then once it lines up, it's pretty much, you can feel it kind of get into the right spot there in the groove. And then you just, that's it. And then we have our small trim piece for the side of the dash. Keep in mind there's a hook at the bottom there, so that just needs to line up. And then you get the snap lined up on top. That's good to go. Then we get our rubber seal back in place. Okay, passenger side's all done and back together. I'm going to go ahead and put the A-pillar back on the driver's side, and then we'll start on door speakers. It's time to install our speakers in our front door of our Tesla Model Y. So what we're going to do first, we're going to snap this tweeter panel off. There's snaps that go directly down. We're going to snap it up and out of the way. There is a nylon cord that attaches the door to the tweeter. We're going to need to cut that to give it the ability to come off. So we'll take that off. There are 3 screws with T30 Torx bits that we're going to use to take the screws off of the handle area. One up top, one under here. We're going to remove this reflector, and there's a T30 behind there. Once that's done, we can unsnap the door panel by pulling it toward us. Once it's all loose, we lift it up and out of the way. Now, there's a main harness on this door panel that cannot be disconnected. There are no plugs for it. So I've placed a blanket down on the floor so I can rest the door panel on the floor without having it get scratched. So that's the process we're going to do. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to use our panel puller. We're going to get underneath the edge of this tweeter right at the top, snap it up. Tweeter's out of the way. We can go ahead and unplug this here. Comes unplugged really nice and easy. We're going to use a pair of cutters. We're going to cut this nylon. So there that is. We'll replace that tweeter out of that pod here in a minute. We're then going to go on. We're going to grab our T30 on our drill. There's another one right underneath the armrest. And then the third one is located behind this reflector on the back of the door panel. So we're going to very gently push our flathead screwdriver, or if you have a pick tool, at the bottom of that reflector, and then just kind of pry it up nice and easy. It'll unclip, and then you can pull it out. There's another screw located behind that. So we'll go ahead and get that real quick. Now, we're going to grab our door panel. You just want to find an area where you can grab in. You may need to get a panel puller just to get a spot started. There we go. These are some tight panel pops. There. They are tight. But that's nice because when it goes back together, it'll go together nice and tight too. Just work our way around the edge. Okay, now you can see that the door panel's nice and loose. At this point, we just kind of wiggle it up, and there you go. So, since it has this cable that can't be detached, we're just going to lean the door panel just like that. With the speaker now exposed, we can go ahead and unplug it here. Push the tab, unplug the speaker. We're going to grab our T25 on our drill. There are 3 T25 screws and 1 8mm screw that hold this speaker in. So, so the bottom front corner has an 8mm. And now our speaker's out. Wow. So that's your factory front speaker. Paper cone, really kind of a weak design there for that speaker. Basically just the minimal to get by, right? So this is our new speaker. Blue carbon fiber surround, nice strong magnet structure here, a lot of motor force out of this, great mid bass. So there's our new speaker. So we're gonna go ahead and put this back in. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the 8mm in first. Then we're gonna go to the T25s. Don't forget to plug your speaker in. So there's that. Now we're going to do the tweeter. So this is fun. The tweeter is basically held on with clips. So there's little tabs, 3 of them. You just kind of pry those out with your fingers. And then you can pop the tweeter out. And then there's your tweeter. Now again, there's that nylon cord that we cut, so that'll come off with the tweeter. And then we have our new tweeter that's right here, and it just clips right in place just like the factory one came out. So there's little grooves, and you just want to find the sweet spot, and once you get it in the right area, it will actually kind of fall into place, and then it'll just snap right in. And there you go. Okay, so let's go ahead and put our door panel back together. We're going to follow the reverse process that we used, taking it apart. So I'm going to just take the door panel here, just kind of line the door panel up at the top, kind of sit down into the groove there right at the top. You want to take your time, you want to be patient, you don't want to get anything out of whack, so you just kind of work it. There it goes, and then just all of a sudden falls right where it needs to be. So once it's there, you'll see that the little clips fall into their holes, and that's when you know you're lined up properly, and then you can just go ahead and snap it in all the way around. All right, so we've got those in. Now we can go ahead and grab our 3 T30 screws. So let's grab those. Remember your reflector, it has the little up arrow, so we see that it goes up this way. So we're just going to slide it in, and then it snaps in, so that's good. And then the last thing is our tweeter. So our tweeter wire is actually coming off of the door panel. It wasn't on the door itself, it's on the door panel. So we're going to plug in that tweeter wire. It only plugs one way, so we need to make sure we line that up properly. There you go, snaps in, and then you're going to push down on this. So on the tweeter housing, there's a small tab that points upwards, so you need to make sure you're in that tab, and then snap it down. And there's our door panel all together. So you follow the same process for this door on the passenger side, do the same thing on the driver's side, and you should be good to go. On to the rear doors. On the back door panel of this Model Y has 2 screws, T30 head screws, one at the upper portion of the handle and one at the lower portion. So we're going to go ahead and grab our drill. We'll take those 2 screws out. There's one. Okay, there's 2. Now we're going to have to pop this panel kind of like we did the front doors. So there's snaps all around the door, and then we're going to get this thing loose. We're going to pop it toward us and then lift up on the door panel once it's kind of loose. So we're going to use a panel tool to try to get in here. Each door panel is a little different when they manufacture them. You want to get the best spot to go in. There we go. All right, and you can hear how tight those are. Okay, one more. There we go. Now you can tell as soon as that last one lets go, this door panel is nice and loose. So we're going to go ahead and work it up, and there you go. Now again, like on the front door, This has a wire that you cannot disconnect. So the door panel has to stay in place. So I have a blanket here so we can rest the door panel on the blanket on the floor. And then we're going to show you this next step of the process here. So I'm going to try to turn the panel toward you because this is a little different than the other speakers. So let me just get this to where you can see it, and then we'll move forward with replacing the speaker. So these rear door speakers on the Model Y and on the Model 3 actually mount differently than all the other speakers in the vehicle. So they actually use a plastic rivet. Okay, so there's a plastic stud that comes through the speaker. They put the speaker on and they melt it, and that's how they attach the speaker to the door panel. So there's a couple of different ways to get those rivets off. The way we're going to suggest is using a drill bit and just drill out the very tip edge of that rivet until it becomes loose, and then you can pop the speaker out. So I'm going to illustrate that for you now. First, we're going to unplug the speaker. Okay, so the speaker's unplugged. And then we're going to use our drill bit. I have a 1/4 inch drill bit on here. You can go a little bigger if you like, but we're just going to ever so gently drill that out. Okay, and then once it starts to grab, you're done. And then you'll kind of see the speaker loosen up a little bit, and that's when you can grab a hold of it and kind of pull it out. Now, something else you can do here, which I am probably going to do, and this is where I really want you to be careful if you use this method, you can actually use a utility knife and kind of cut the tip of that off, any excess, and you just want to get under that edge and shave it down so that the speaker will actually pop out. Okay. And you also want to be careful because if you try to pry the speaker before it's fully disconnected, you'll actually damage those studs, and we're going to reuse those studs to actually screw in new screws for this. There we go. Okay, one last little bit here. Some of these get melted a little more than the others, so they're a little deeper. So you just need to disconnect that stud from the frame of the speaker so it'll pop off. We're just going to work that apart. And we're good. Okay, let's go ahead and put our Alpine speaker in here. So we're going to go ahead and hold the speaker in place, and then it comes with 3 new screws with the kit that will allow you to screw into those tabs that we just trimmed to get the factory speaker off. So we're going to go ahead and screw these down. All right. So we are good to go. Time to put this thing back together. After we plug it in, of course. All right. Okay, so speaker's plugged in. We have all the screws in. Let's go ahead. We're going to reverse the process of taking the door panel off, and we're going to put it back on. So just like on the front door, we're going to go ahead and find the groove at the top. And then as you move this thing around, oh, that fell right into place. So that is nice. Didn't have to struggle much at all. And then this thing just clips right in pretty easy, so there we go. Now we have the 2 T30 screws. Okay, now that's done. So guess what? It's time to repower up our car and listen to this thing, and then we can put the back seat back in. So let's go ahead and wrap it all up. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and connect our high voltage plug under the seat here. Then we're going to go to the front, connect our low voltage. Once we do a full test, then we can put our seat back in. Let's go to the front. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and connect our low voltage connection under the frunk. So we're going to push this down. There we go. Okay, lock that all back together. Then we could go ahead and put the frunk back together. So I'm going to take our air intake here. Go ahead and put that back in place. Be careful not to scratch our fenders. Then we have our tub. So we're going to set that in here. We have the plug for the light. We have to make sure we connect that. So that is now connected. All right, so we've done all the installation. We've gotten all our work in, got our hands dirty, and came out with a killer install in this Model Y. So it's time to give it a listen, check it out, see what we think. So I'm going to play a good old tune here.
It is a groove slightly transformed, just a bit of a break from the norm, just a little something to break the monotony of all that hardcore dance that has gotten to be a little bit out of control. It's cool to dance, but what about a groove that soothes and moves romance? Give me a soft, subtle mix, and if it ain't broke, then don't try to fix it. And think of the summers of the past, adjust the bass and let the Alpine blast. Pop in my CD and let me run.
Nice. This thing sounds really, really good. That 10-inch in the back is really giving us some deep, clean bass. The mids and highs throughout the vehicle just really sound awesome. Great mid bass from the doors, like a concert going on up in the dash. Man, it sounds really, really good. I can also use the factory controls for my subwoofer level and all my EQ to control the bass and everything else just like I want it. So you can still use all that functionality. Look, if you bought one of these systems for your Model Y, or you're thinking about it for your Model Y or your Model 3, I'm sure you're going to be pleased. So until we talk again, remember to always let the Alpine blast.